All right, so in our game, we have the player climbing up to the top, touching the angel, and a sound playing signifying they won. Right. Well, what I want to add next is after the sound plays, for the player to be warped back to the beginning, and for him to try again. Right. And so how do we do that? Well, we're going to go into the angel's model, right, and then we're going to go into his torso, and then we're going to open up his torso script. And what you have should be this portion here. What you need to add in order to get it so it warps over to the starting location is this code here. So go ahead and pause the video and type this out in your script. And I'm going to explain it. So to explain it, the way it works is this connect is listening, waiting for the angel's torso to be touched, and when it is, it's going to run the code in onTouch. And when it does run this code on onTouch, it automatically passes in the part that touched the angel, right, here in this variable called touched part. And so when the player plays and touches the angel, what happens is that one of his parts. So let me go ahead and play this so that we can see it. Yeah, Roblox is kind of an interesting game, meaning there's kind of a few subtleties about it. The way it works is you have your player, right? But he's not in the workspace. You see this? He's not in here yet. But when you go ahead and play the game and run it, it creates the player and puts him into the workspace. So you see here, it creates some of these folders. Like it creates the players folders and fills it with the player. It takes the workspace and it adds the player. He's right in here, right? And so when this game is playing, what it's checking for is what part of the player touches the angel. And if you look here under the player, you'll see he has all these different parts, like a foot and a head and torso, right? And so what we have set as what usually is going to happen is this lower torso part is going to touch the angel's torso, right? And so when we come over here to touched part, this is most likely going to be the player's lower torso, right? But it could very well be the upper torso or the right arm or the lower arm, right? It could be any one of his parts. So when it comes in here, this if statement is checking and it's saying, is the touch part's parent, right? So any one of these parts here, the parent is dlee.smusd. It's the player that's in the workspace. Does he have a child, right? And if you look inside of his children, right? If you open and close this folder, you can see all these children here. Is one of his children a humanoid, right? So basically this question is asking is if what touched the angel is the player, because there's no other component, there's no other part in the workspace that has a child that is a humanoid. Okay, there's no other part except for the angel, of course, but the angel cannot touch himself, right? So this is saying like, okay, if the player touches the angel, then what am I going to do? I'm going to store the touched part's parent, which is, let's say, the lower torso's parent is dlee, into the player variable. So I'm saving the player in the player variable, and then I'm taking the game. This whole thing is the game, right? The folder that contains this, all of these components. Dot workspace, here's the workspace. Dot spawn location 1, that's this guy here. And I'm going to store his position, okay? And that's like where he is in the 3D space of this world here that we created. And I'm going to save that inside of this variable called warp location, okay? And once I have that, and then I could say game.workspace, and I'm going to wait for the child, right, whose name is the player's name, and the player's name is dlee, or in this case, it's dlee smusd. Right? So it's going to grab the player, and it's going to get his lower torso, and it's going to place his C frame, and the C frame is the character frame. Okay, something that's very important, and what it does is it defines the position of a part or a model, right? In this case, the model. So here we got the player's model. The player has a C frame, and we're setting the C frame to the warp location 1's position. Okay, that's basically what this is doing. And it gets a little bit more complicated than that. At least the explanation does, but I don't want to get into it right now. So I'm just going to let you know that this line right here is what's saying warp the player's location to the spawn 1 location's position. Okay, that's what all this is doing. And so if you do need to get this end part here, this is what it says, okay, when you're copying the code into your program. Right, and so we can go ahead and test it out and see if it works. And if you feel a little bit uneasy about not knowing how C-frame works, don't worry, I'm going to get into it in more detail in a future lesson. So here we go. Explosion goes off. I'm continuing on down. Going to go up the stairs. And don't want to fall off. I'm going to touch the angel. Okay, so I touched the sound played, and I get sent back to the starting position. Okay, and so I guess what we can do when we're here is when we play, maybe we can wait for like a second to let the play sound finish. Okay, so wait 1 before warping the player, and that's about it.